عاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سيد ولد آدم أجمعين صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين على مر الأيام والليالي والشهور والسنين أما بعد. We continue Wednesday, October the 2nd, 2019, which agrees with the third, and if I'm not mistaken, it's now the fourth of this blessed month, on this blessed night of Safar, of the month of the Hijri calendar, which is called Safar. Safar. In the fourth night, which is the year 1441, after the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam. And we continue in Kitaab At-Tawheed as La Yazal al-Hadith Mawsulan fi Bab al-Sihr, as the chapter continues in the affair of magic, where you find that the great Imam had narrated the hadith on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu ardah, where he said, اجتنبوا السبع الموبقات, avoid or stay far away from the 7 great destructive sins. And we were saying that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, that he mentioned these sins, but you'll find that Ahl Ilm said that they're not just restricted to what was mentioned in this narration only. There are others which the Messenger of Allah ﷺ spoke about it being also destructive, and could be from those sins that could land one if he doesn't make proper tawbah from that particular sin. It could be a reason, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve us and you from this, that Allah might punish his abd or his servant as a result of it, if he does not make proper tawbah from committing these type of acts. So the Prophet ﷺ, after he was asked from the Sahaba, Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'een, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned at the head of all major sins that are destructive is ash-shirku billah, polytheism and setting up partners with Allah in his worship. So the Prophet ﷺ started off with this sin. And in regards to shirk, you'll find, ya ma'ashal ikhwah, that polytheism precedes every sin, especially in these narrations. You'll find there's a lot of them that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned polytheism first, as it being the head of all sins and the greatest of them. As you'll find that is from what is mentioned in this book of Tawheed, the monotheism being the greatest of all deeds. The most greatest of all deeds, and the greatest of all affairs, and the most honorable. And it was what will save a person, where he will attain salvation in the hereafter. So he said, number 1, ash-shirku billah. That is the first great destructive sin. Then after that is the point of reference of why the great Imam mentioned this narration, where he says was sihr, magic. So that is the point of reference here, was sihr. So the Prophet ﷺ said, ash-shirku billah was sihr. وَقَتْلُ النَّفْسِ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. You'll find in the book of Allah, ya ma'ashal ikhwah, you'll find that certain ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts from the greatest of sins in its magnitude, even though all of them are considered evil and tremendous. But you'll find that he'll mention, especially Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his book, subhanahu jalla fil ula, starting from the greatest of them, and then going down the ladder as far as in its magnitude, even though all of them are tremendous. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, for example, قُلْ إِنَّ حَرَّمَ رَبِّيَ الْفَوَاحِشِ. Excuse me. قُلْ إِنَّ رَبِّي حَرَّمَ الْفَوَاحِشَ مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا وَمَا بَطَنَ وَالْإِثْمَ وَالْبَغْيَ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ وَأَن تُشْرِكُوا بِاللَّهِ ما لم ينزل به سلطانا وأن تقولوا على الله ما لا تعلمون. This particular ayah, you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts from the, relatively speaking, the lowest up to the highest. So in this particular ayah that I'm going to mention right now, you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts from where all these sins are considered great. So no one should understand or misunderstand what we're saying is that these sins are not considered low in its level and its magnitude of how destructive it is. All of it is major. All of it is considered from the adha'im or the kaba'ir. All of them are considered for the major sins. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started, relatively speaking, from the lowest to the highest. That say that my Lord has made unlawful fawahish. قُلْ إِنَّمَا حَرَّمَ رَبِّيَ الحمدلله قُلْ إِنَّمَا حَرَّمَ رَبِّيَ الْفَوَاحِشِ مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا وَمَا بَطَنَ وَالْإِثْمَ وَالْبَغْيَ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ. Say that my Lord has made unlawful fawahish. What is the meaning of fawahish? This fawahish is the plural of fahisha, which is abominable acts that are done with the private part. Abominable acts, the filthy acts that are done with the private part. They are done with the private part, between your legs. That my Lord has made unlawful everything that's of fawahish, whether it be fornication, adultery, homosexuality, bestiality, lesbianism, all these affairs. All of them are considered fawahish. All of them are considered abominable acts that are done with the private part. What is done openly and secretly. As it says in the ayah. قُلْ إِنَّمَا حَرَّمَ رَبِّيَ الْفَوَاحِشِ مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا وَمَا بَطَنَ وَالْإِثْمَ وَالْبَغْيَ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ. After him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had declared that these affairs are abominable and hideous and evil. Then Allah ta'ala mentioned in the ayah, وَالْبَغْيَ وَالْإِثْمَ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ. He says as far as injustice and oppression, which is unjustified. Then it goes up the ladder, higher, higher, higher. وَأَن تُشْرِكُوا بِاللَّهِ مَا لَمْ يُنَزِّلْ بِهِ سُلْطَانًا. That you set up partners with Allah in His worship that He did not send down any authority. Notice there's a sin that comes after shirk here. وَأَن تَقُولُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. That you say upon Allah what you have no knowledge of. Notice there was something else mentioned after shirk. You'll find, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, shirk, if you'll find in its origin, goes back to this, what we just mentioned. They're saying something upon Allah what a person does not have any knowledge of. And you know that when you say something upon Allah what you have no knowledge of, is considered from the aspect of tashri', of legislation. These affairs are the most greatest of affairs. When you now start to partake in legislating certain matters in the religion, there is no doubt that that's considered what? Shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, it can be considered worse due to the fact that it is what? It is connected, as the rububiyyah of Allah is connected with His tashri' of what He legislates. When you say upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what you have no knowledge of, then this affair, no doubt, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, could be connected with the rububiyyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is considered worse. You'll find that Ibn al-Qayyim that he mentioned in I'lam al-Muwaqqi'een, Ar-Rabb al-Alameen, what Ibn al-Qayyim mentioned in his book called I'lam al-Muwaqqi'een, Ar-Rabb al-Alameen. What Ibn al-Qayyim wrote in this tremendous treatise entitled I'lam al-Muwaqqi'een, where it says, the title of the book is I'lam al-Muwaqqi'een. He says, those who have signed their signature for Rabbul Alameen. Those who announce, meaning when you speak upon Allah and when you talk about the affairs of the religion and when you give religious rulings and you speak in the affairs of the religion, notice that Ibn al-Qayyim titled his book that you're signing your signature for Rabbul Alameen. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? That's the reason why it's called I'lam al-Muwaqqi'een, Ar-Rabbil Alameen. Those who announce, meaning who sign their signatures for Rabbul Alameen, for the Lord of all the worlds. So when you speak about the affairs of the religion, and when you give religious rulings, and when you talk and speak up on and elaborate on affairs that's pertaining to the religion of Allah Ta'ala, you are assigning your signature for Allah. That's the title of the book. Ibn al-Qayyim mentioned in his book, Ya Ma'ashar al-Ikhwa, in regards to this ayah that I'm mentioning right now, he said, notice in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he mentioned what is considered, even though all these affairs are evil, and all these affairs are from the kaba'ir, all of them are considered from the major sins. He says, if you notice in the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started from the least, all the way up to what's considered the worst in its magnitude. From abominable acts that are done with the private part, openly and secretly. Whether it be abominations as far as adultery, or fornication, or homosexuality, or lesbianism, or bestiality, and all these affairs that are abominable, which are done with the private part, which are considered from the kaba'ir, from the major sins. And then Allah goes up, up, up in its scale, and injustice and oppression, which is unjustified, even though we know there's no such thing as justifiable oppression. As we know that the meaning of the ayah is called, as they say, that is sifatun kashifa la mafhuma laha. Ji'a biha li ajli tawdih wa ta'keed. At any rate, as the ayah says, also oppression and injustice, unjustifiably of course, then it goes up the ladder. Allah Ta'ala says that you set up partners with him, that he has not sent down any authority, and that you say upon Allah which you have no knowledge of. So it says in the last part, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, there's a sin worse than shirk, or it could be worse than polytheism, which is what, everyone? It's like we said, that you say upon Allah which you have no knowledge of, where Ibn al-Qayyim mentioned I'lam al-Muwaqqi'een, where Allah arranged the ayat, as far as what was mentioned, from what is considered, relatively speaking, again, from what is considered evil, of course, all of them, but as far as in its magnitude, what is the less, all the way up to the highest. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Here in this ayah, you'll find it has also been mentioned in the opposite. From that is this hadith here. You understand, everyone? As you know, find here in this particular hadith of Abu Hurairah, radiallahu anhu ardah, what has been mentioned, if you notice, everyone, starting from what is the evil of all sins, which is shirk, and going down to what? The ladder. So now it's going from up to where? To down. Even though all of them are considered from what? From the major sins. All of them are considered from the major sins. So at the head of all of them is polytheism. Then second, what, everyone? Magic. Sihr. Practicing magic. Also is from those 7 great destructive sins. We talked about last class in regards to some of Ahl Ilm, that he mentioned the masail or the matters that's connected to sihr. That we said for the masail that is mentioned, or from the matters that are mentioned in this regard, is sihr forgivable? Can Allah Ta'ala forgive sihr? For a person you'll find from Ahl Ilm, especially from Imam Ahmad, but we said that a person, he's killed if he reaches the authorities, of course, and the Muslim ruler, and that because we know those affairs of applying the penalties or the exemplary punishment is from the jurisdiction of the ruler only, and is not for the common folk to conduct in these affairs at all. It's from the jurisdiction of the authorities. That if a person, if it reached them that he was practicing magic and he was harming people, that, as we know from Imam Ahmad, in the madhab of Imam Ahmad, it is said that a person from him merely learning it, teaching it, and then applying it, implementing what he knows by harming people by magic, that person will be what? Considered fallen in the kufr, and he will also be considered what? Killed. That is his punishment. But the question now is, as we mentioned last class, hal yustatab? That's the question. Hal yustatab? Is tawbah sought from him or not? Or is it just khalas, he's killed and that's it? What did we say last class? We said last class, what is a qawl rajih, based upon this hadith, that we said, what is the strongest opinion, that he is sought, or tawbah is sought from him first. Due to the fact that you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives the greatest of sins, which is worse than magic, which is what? Shirk with Allah. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives polytheism, as long as the person does not die in that state. After he's dead, khalas. But if a person is considered or committing disbelief or kufr or polytheism, and the person leaves it off, and he comes back to the truth, and he embraces Iman and leaves off that polytheism, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will what? Forgive it. As Allah ta'ala clearly mentions this in the ayah, قُلْ يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ جَمِيعًا إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. Oh, say to those who have transgressed the bounds against themselves, do not give up hope or despair from the mercy of Allah. Verily, Allah forgives, and Allah said and generalized it. He forgives all sins. He forgives all sins. إِنَّهُ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ جَمِيعًا. All sins. Meaning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can forgive what? Shirk, as long as the person does not what? Die upon it. If he dies upon it, khalas. That person will be khalidun mukhalladun fi an-nar, nasallallahu alayhi wa sallam min dhalik. That person will abide forever, eternally in the hellfire, and will never come out if he dies upon polytheism. But if he's in that state here in the dunya, he's still living, or amongst the living, leaves off that. If that's the case in regards to polytheism, then we know that what? Sins that are other than that is for all the more reason that they will what? Be forgiven. Is it clear what I'm saying? So that is the qawl rajih in the affair or the matter which we're discussing now, which is what? Hal yustatab. Is tawbah sought from the sahir or the magician or not? We would say yes. Due to the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can forgive shirk, then if shirk is forgivable as long as a person did not die upon it, then other than those sins is for all the more reason that they could be forgiven. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear or not? طيب. So now you'll find that we said sihr, magic. We talked about the statement of Imam al-Shafi'i. We gave the details of the great Imam Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, what we said about magic. طيب. So that's the second affair. طيب. Notice in the hadith, it goes on to say, أكل الربا وأكل مال اليتيم والتولي يوم الزحف وأكل مال اليتيم. It says eating of usury or consumption of usury. So I'll talk about that later on, inshallah. You'll find that the meaning of akl riba, the eating of usury, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, is considered from the major sins. Why? Because it's oppression of the poor. It's exploiting the poor. And it is making them impoverished more in poverty. And it's making the rich more rich. That's the reason why you'll find the hikmah of Islam, why it prohibited, highly prohibited what? Consuming of usury, which comes in a lot of forms of what the non-Muslims know it as interest and other than that. Even you'll start to find that now even the non-Muslims are saying the reason of why the economy has a major imbalance of it is because of the usury and the interest has rocked and shifted the economy and has made it to the point where it might not come back to being what? Normal, especially here in America where they are in a $1 trillion deficit. And the $1 trillion deficit is because of the usury and the interest. Where everything now is on debt. Where to them, debt is an asset. Where that doesn't make absolutely any sense. But here in America, from their ideologies, is that debt is an asset. That's why you'll find that people, when they have good credit, they'll send credit cards and things to your house because they know they want to keep you in debt. That's the object. The objective of America is to keep you in debt. Because debt to them is an asset. Is it clear what I'm saying? For verily, riba ya ma'ashal ikhwa, riba is from the affairs where from Jahiliyyah, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when it was utilized by the rich to make them more rich. And to exploit the poor and make them more poor. And notice Islam considered this from being from the major sins. Why from the major sins, everyone? Because we know from the affairs that from the beauty of our religion is that you have to treat the what? The impoverished, and treat them kindly. And make sure that they're good. And that you'll find, like we talked about in a lot of the other classes, especially on the last days and times of during the day of resurrection, when the hour is about to be established, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow the people of Rome to be the majority of the non-Muslims in the last days and times on this earth. To the Prophet ﷺ said, "La taqum as-sa'a hatta yakuna akthar an-nas ar-rum." Or hatta yakuna ar-rum akthar an-nas, excuse me. That the hour will not be established until Rome will be the majority of the people on earth. Rome. Prophet ﷺ in another narration gave the reasons of why they will be the majority of the people of the earth. And one of the reasons is, he says they treat their poor very kindly. They don't oppress their poor. They don't oppress their impoverished or the indigent from amongst them. They do not oppress them. The Prophet ﷺ was not praising them. He was just giving the reasons of why Allah will allow them to have some longevity in the earth. In contrast to the opposite, you will notice that those who are very evil towards the poor and impoverished and like to oppress them and take advantage of them, notice they are not given longevity. They will not survive. And all you have to do is look around in America and all the chaos that's going on in this country on a yearly basis of how many people die here in this country. 1 year here, 40,000 people. And they want to talk about the Middle East is backwards. 1 year in America, 40,000 people die of drug overdose and due to what? Firearms and fatalities. In 1 year, 2017, 1 year, almost 40,000 people. That's the size of a city. Almost, that's like a city. 40,000 people. And they want to talk about the Arabs in the Middle East are backwards? You understand, everyone? So you'll find that those who oppress the poor, and you see that's exactly what's going on in America. America's about what? The haves and the have-nots. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. It's about the haves and the have-nots, which means the poor, get rid of them. So now we put the what? Drugs in your neighborhoods, the alcohol, the intoxicants, the guns. You blow your heads out. You blow your heads off. That's how you treat the poor here in America. And that's the reason why if they keep this up, it's not going to have longevity. Due to the fact Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never blesses a community or civilization that oppresses their poor and takes advantage of them. And utilizes them and exploits them. And then plunges them into more poverty, especially by the way of usury. Especially by the way of riba. Like we talked about, usury and interest were affairs to make the rich richer and what? And the poor poor. And the have-nots have less, and those who have more. So you see the hikmah of why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade what? Riba. So can it be a balance in the economy? And so the people who are less fortunate, or I don't want to say less fortunate, but those who are impoverished or from the indigent do not become oppressed. Is it clear what I'm saying to you? The Prophet ﷺ goes on to say, when in regards to riba, the worst, I don't know if I can talk about that right now. Then you'll find that the Prophet ﷺ said, وَأَكْلَ مَالِ الْيَتِيمِ. He says, eating the wealth of an orphan. Eating the wealth or consuming the wealth of an orphan. As we know, the meaning of yatim in the Arabic language, the one whose father died before he reached puberty. الذي مات أبوه قبل البلوغ or قبل بلوغه. The one whose father died before bulugh, before he reached puberty. Is it clear what I'm saying? That is a yatim. That is an orphan. Doesn't matter whether it's a female or male or a female. So you find from the beauty of Islam is to also have excellence and good treatment for the what? For the orphans. Is this a religion of chaos and a religion of bloodshed, a religion of violence and havoc and mass hysteria in society? Here this narration shows the beauty of Islam. Shows what? From the major destructive sins is to consume the wealth of an orphan whose father died. Maybe it was some wealth that was left for his benefit only. And you come and now starting to conduct in the wealth. Listen what the great Imam Wed.Fri.Sun.After that he mentioned in this regard. He says, He said, أما من ماتت أمه قبل بلوغه فليس يتيما لا شرعا ولا لغة لأن اليتيم مأخوذ من اليتم وهو الانفراد انفرد من الكاسب له. Now listen to this part. لأن أباه هو الذي يكسب له. Allahu Akbar. So listen what he goes on to say. He says, as for the one whose mother died before puberty, that's not considered an orphan. Not in the Kitaab and Sunnah, nor linguistically. Is it clear? Because the yatim is derived from the word in the Arabic language, yutmi, or yutum. Yutum in the Arabic language means infirad, where a person becomes by themselves. Infirad, where he's become by himself. Alone, where he's become alone or by himself. What does it mean, alone by himself? Meaning he's become singled out and alone as far as the one who what? Spends on him or provides for him. What do you understand from this? That the responsibility of the children of the one who goes out and attains their food and sustenance is who? The father. When the father dies, now what? There's no one that will what? Spend on him or provide for him. Or the one who's a kasib, the one who acquires for him. He's been stripped of that. Because, like we said, the father is the one who what? Yaksibu lahu. Is the one who what? Acquires and provides for him. Is it clear? So that's the meaning of yatim. Comes from the word yutum. We said the word yutum means infirad. Meaning when a person has become by themselves or alone. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Why did the Prophet ﷺ single out, or why did the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, why did he particularize al-yatim here? He said, due to the fact that you'll find that those people who do not have a way for them to defend themselves, they are the most whose hurma, whose boundaries are considered worse as far as their violation, because they don't have anyone to help them. So you to take advantage of them now is considered what? Very evil. Because you're just looking and you're anticipating, because, oh, see, he doesn't have no one, she doesn't have anyone, this little child don't have anyone. It's a proper opportunity for me to what? Take advantage. When you have that type of mindset, know when you're violating now, the sin is greater. Because you know that there's no one to defend that particular individual. Especially with these women out here, and especially with some of these men and brothers out here. Because I know there's a lot of brothers out here that take advantage of these women. Because they know they don't have no men in their families. So I'm going to take advantage of her. And I know there's a lot of brothers out here that do that. They don't have no men. I know. Or you'll find that brothers play a mind game. They'll separate the sister in a very, very sneaky, conniving way by trying to cut her off from her family. Or the men in her family. Oh, he's a kafir. Not saying that saying that because, okay, he's a kafir, I don't want you to deal with him at all. No. Your intent behind it is to cut her off from the men. So you can get her where you want her, have her in the house, and you start oppressing her. Is it clear what I'm saying? So like I said, these narrations as far as in regards to the orphan, is to show you that Islam is letting everyone know when a person is not is vulnerable, or they're in a state of vulnerability, where there's no one that can aid them and help them, it's incumbent upon you to take in consideration that you should treat them better. Because they don't have anyone to defend them. And from those particular examples is here, who's considered who? The orphan. The orphan doesn't have anyone to defend him. It's keen. That's the reason why even Ibn Uthaymeen mentions this here. He says, وَخَصَّ الْيَتِيمِ لِأَنَّهُ لَا أَحَدَ يُدَافِعَ عَنْهُ وَلِأَنَّهُ أَوْلَى يُرْحَمُ وَلِهَذَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لَهُ حَقًّا فِي الْفَيْءِ وإذا كان أحق أن يرحم فكيف يسطو هذا الرجل الظالم على ماله فيأكله. To the end of it. He says the Prophet ﷺ particularized the orphan here because there's no one to defend him. There's no one to defend him. And he said he's the most deserving that mercy be upon him, that he be what? That mercy be upon him, or he be treated with mercy. He said, for in that reason you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the haqq, or gave a right for the orphan in regards to the war booty. He said, if that's the case, that he deserves the most of what? Of mercy. How could you come now and take advantage and violate, meaning this oppressive man, and take his money and then what? Consume it unlawfully? How could you do this? Knowing that he doesn't have anybody to what? To aid him. You understand, everyone? طيب. So that's the reason why the Messenger of Allah ﷺ considered that eating or consuming the wealth of the orphan is considered from the major what? The major, not only the major sins, but them 7 great what? Destructive sins. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So take in consideration, I want everyone to listen carefully, especially online. The more that you see that a person doesn't have anyone to defend them, where they are the person who was the most vulnerable, where they don't have anyone. They don't have anyone in their family to help them. They don't have anyone in their family to aid them. And you're sizing them up, because that's what we like to do here in this society. We like to size people up. We like to size them up. I don't think no one in this room likes to be sized up. You like to size them up, and then get close, and then as a result of it, what? Take advantage. When it should be the opposite. For those who are the most vulnerable and do not have anyone to help them, you should take that as an initiative to what? To aid them. To help them even more. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. The next narration part is it says, وَتَوَلِّي يَوْمَ الزَّحْفِ. It's time for the adhan already? What time did it come in the mirror? So for you want to call the mayor in the office or the mayor out here? Tafadal. You want to call him? Very good. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. I'm very aware of what goes on. Shadu la ilaha illallah. الله أكبر الله أكبر اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت صيغ الفضيلة وباعث مقام محمود الذي وعدته The Messenger of Allah ﷺ that he mentioned in this narration, from the 7 great destructive sins is called At-Tawheed Yawm al-Zahf, retreating or turning your backs on the day of marching. Because the word zahf means to march. Yazhaf, or zahf, which is meaning basically to flee during the time of what? Battle. That's the meaning of this narration. At-Tawheed Yawm al-Zahf. Tawalli means to turn away. طيب. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ talked about this being from the major 7 great destructive sins. Why? Due to the fact during the time of battle, as we know that when it's a legislated battle, not a jihad of the deviant sects or the jihad of the perverted understanding of Islam that the people propagate from the deviant sects. We're not talking about those type of so-called jihad. We're talking about if there was a true battle, a true legislated battle. And it happened, and in the battle when the people march, and we know from what's considered a true jihad is that they will both march, and then the non-Muslims come and they are upon clarity of what's going to take place. It's not like how these terrorists, for example, they set a bomb in a mall or in a supermarket or under a car or under a bus. That's not jihad. That's just chaos. And that's just murder of innocent bystanders. You understand? We're talking about the day it's clear. The non-Muslims are in front of you. The Muslims are in front of the non-Muslims. Non-Muslims are in front. They are clear knowing what's about to go down. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? And even then, if you'll find that the Prophet ﷺ still, before the battle, the message of Allah, they're saying that there's alternatives to the last part before the fighting. As we'll talk about the last hadith of Kitaab At-Tawheed, it's the very last one. If it's not, it's either the last hadith or the hadith before the last in the end of the book, where the Prophet ﷺ clarified of what is the steps are supposed to be, the steps that are taken before in the battle of jihad, and it's not started with fighting in the beginning at all. First, you call them to Islam. That's number one. Where do these terrorists do this? Call them to Islam. Clarify to them what Islam is. Clarify to them what it is. Say it again. Of course they don't know what Islam means. Yeah, so that's the first thing. The Prophet ﷺ said, do not start with the fighting. And you'll find that the message of Allah said in the narration says, لا تتمنوا لقاء العدو. Listen to what the message of Allah said in another narration. Don't hope to meet the enemy. لا تتمنوا لقاء العدو. Don't hope to meet the enemy. Don't hope for what? I just want to kill him. That's not the mentality. He said, but if it results to that, because we know there's people out there that's going to try to harm the Muslims and harm the people. So there's going to be battles. And that has to be what? There has to be clear instructions on knowing how to conduct in these affairs. So the message of Allah ﷺ had mentioned and said, when you're face to face with the enemy, then what? Start with these steps first. Number one, call them to Islam first. How many from these people that put bombs under the buses in malls and killing innocent bystanders start with this first? What do? Do they call them to Islam? Absolutely not. Just pure chaos, helter-skelter. It's absolute chaos and mayhem and mass hysteria. That's it. The Prophet ﷺ said, if they do not do that. Now the next step is to offer them what? The jizya. Offer them that they can stay upon their religion, of course, but then they will have to be what? Consider the tax of what they will have to pay, of course, in order to remain in the lands amongst the Muslims, even though they don't accept Islam. Then there's another step. I don't know to talk about that step. There's another step about the dhimma of yourselves, meaning offer protection of yourselves, that you would grant them. I'll talk about this in a little bit later. It's the last hadith, or it's towards the last part of the chapter. And in Kitaab At-Tawheed is there. I got to break this down. But anyway, that's the third step. Just keep that in mind of what the third step is, because I don't want to get too in detail, because it's in the last part of Kitaab At-Tawheed, and I don't want you guys to lose out on the benefit of that hadith. Fine. That's the third. There's a third step. He says, if they say that they want protection or some type of dhimma, offer them the dhimma of yourselves, not of Allah and His Messenger. There's a reason why the message of Allah said, I don't want to talk about that right now. Last one, the fourth, which is if they do not accept any of those three alternatives, then he said, of course, then that will be the last step, which is to what? To engage in battle. Is it clear what I'm saying? I'll tell you back after class. Fine, that's the fourth one. Notice the message of Allah said, now, then once the battle starts, it's incumbent upon the mu'min to what? Remain firm. To remain firm, steadfast. And that the reason of why you're fighting is because you want the i'la kalimatillah fil ard. You want to now make the word of monotheism and tawheed the utmost in the earth. For not any other reason. That's the only reason why you're what? Engaging in battle with the mushrikeen. The Prophet ﷺ said in this particular instance, if battle now occurs, you engage in a battle amongst the mushrikeen, you cannot flee away in the battle except in two instances. There's a rule and there's an exception, where there's only two exceptions. I'll give it to you generally, brothers and sisters, and I'll explain it. Go back to Surah Al-Anfal, ayat number 16. Surah Al-Anfal, ayat number 16. The two exceptions in battle is mentioned in that ayah, where a person can flee with two exceptions. But in actuality, you're not fleeing, if you look in the reality of these two exceptions. طيب. The first one is إِلَّا مَنْ كَانَ مُتَحَرِّفًا لِقِتَالٍ أو متحيز إلى فئة. The first exception when a person flees in a battle is what they call متحرف لقتال, meaning that you'll find that during the battle that a person he would turn his back, but his intent is to ultimately go back into battle. For example, that he leaves, he turns his back, and he would come, for example, if you want to say, gathering himself or preparing himself for another what? For another engagement with the what? With the enemy. That he goes back, he collects himself, gathers his thoughts, even might rectify his affair in regards to his weaponry or what have you. Trick the enemy that the enemy thinks he's what? Fleeing, but ultimately his whole intent is to what? Is to engage back in the battle again. Is it clear what I'm saying? Matter of fact, I'll read it quickly. He said the meaning of mutaharrif liqital is mutahayyid, the person who's now gathering his affair or preparing himself for another attack. That he rectifies his matters as far as his weaponry or his equipment or what have you. So now he will leave to another place. And maybe perhaps he will come and attack the enemy from another side. So in actuality, is this considered fleeing a battle or not? It's not. So a person that turns away and he does this and then goes back, then that person is called mutaharrif, meaning that he just fled away, but however, ultimately his intent is to return back to engage with the enemy. Is it clear what I'm saying? That's the first exception. The number two is what they call mutahayyiz ila fi'ah. Mutahayyiz ila fi'ah. Mutahayyiz ila fi'ah is now when a person when he flees away, but ultimately he flees away in order to gather with another group of the Muslims, to strengthen them. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? That they might flee in a battle. They see that now there's a group of the Muslims that are being overwhelmed. And that maybe perhaps if they're left, then more than likely they might be what? Killed, be decimated in the battle. Khalas. So they now flee and go to that group to strengthen them. And then here, this is not considered fleeing away in the battle at all. Because you're now, as they say, mutahayyiz ila fi'ah. You are now gathering to another group and strengthening their what? Their ranks. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Even I'll read what Ibn Uthaymin mentions in this regard. He says the same thing I'm mentioning here. He said, متحيز إلى فئة كما إذا حصلت سرية للمسلمين يمكن أن يقضي عليها العدو فانصرف من هؤلاء لينقذها فهذا لا بأس به لدعاء الضرورة إليه بشرط أن لا يكون على الجيش ضرر فإن كان على الجيش ضرر وذهبت طائفة كبيرة إلى هذه السرية بحيث توهن قوة الجيش وتكسر أمام العدو فإنه لا يجوز. He's saying exactly what I just mentioned. So the person now that gathers with another group, for example, if there's a battalion for the Muslims, then maybe perhaps the enemy will kill them. I mean a group from the Muslims. So this other group flees in order to save the other. Clear what I'm saying, Musa? That group flees away in order to save what? The other. Is it clear what I'm saying, Suhail? So if I ask you, you won't be able to answer me? Your father can't save you. Huh? Okay. So the other group will flee to the other one in order to what? In order to what, everyone? To save and strengthen their ranks in order to save. This is not considered what? Fleeing away at all. It's no problem. He said, due to the severe, dire necessity for this. He said, only this is done with the condition that there isn't any type of harm upon the army. That this can only be done, for example, if the army was to join with another group and it still would be a harm upon the army, then they cannot do it. If it's now considered as clear there's going to be a harm, if we flee, we get to them, now we would strengthen their ranks, but still, maybe perhaps there will be a harm that will ultimately come as a result of it, then he said that no. But however, it says, with the condition that there will not be a harm against the army. If there's a harm against the army, for example, he said where this group will go to this other battalion, meaning from the other Muslim armies. He says where now it would weaken the strength of the Muslims. If that's the case, if it now breaks their strength in front of the enemy, for here in this instance, it's not permissible to do this at all. Because the harm now has become actualized. He said, no doubt, وَإِنْ قَاضَ السَّرِيَّةَ غَيْرُ مُتَحَقِّقٍ فَلَا يَجُوزُ لِأَنَّ الْمَقْصُودِ إِظْهَارُ دِينِ اللَّهِ. He says, in saving the other group or the other battalion, he says for here, he says not if there's no need for it, well, you do not need this to flee, if you do not need to go and strengthen their ranks, because there's no need now. But if you do it, then there might be a harm. For example, like we said, the battalion might not need it, or the other group of the Muslims might not need that help. Let's just say they don't need it. So let's just say, oh, let's just go strengthen their ranks. If they don't need it, then what? You consider fleeing. Because now there will be a harm here. Because now the strength of the Muslims is being broke here in front of the enemy. So as a result of it, he said, now fleeing in order to strengthen the other ranks of the other group or the other battalion, here you do not do it. Due to the fact that the harm now has been what? Carried out and actualized. Is it clear what I'm saying? Is it clear? So if he said in this case it's not permissible. He said because what is intended by the battle is to manifest the religion of Allah, make it utmost in the earth. And not to what? To manifest weakness in that the Muslims are downtrodden, or they're considered what? Weak. Or they're considered people who are what? Failures, or people who are what? Or as they say, shuja, or the people that are cowardly. That's one I wanted to mention. That was the word. People who are considered cowardly. Because this is considered humiliation for the religion of Allah. However, he does give an exception to say, except that if the kuffar or the non-Muslims are more than double the number of the Muslims. What am I talking about? There's an ayah, and I'm going to stop right here because I don't want to get too much details. There's an ayah, for example, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Anfal, ayat number 66, goes back to this. Ayat number 66, Surah Al-Anfal. Ayat number 66, Surah Al-Anfal. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, Allah has now relieved the burden off of you. And he has absolute knowledge that you have weakness in you. If there is amongst you 100 who are patient, then they can overcome 200. And if there's amongst you who are 1,000, then they can overcome what? 2,000. To the end of the ayah. So that shows that the Muslims, that their number, what they can tolerate is what? A double of, what is the number of the non-Muslims. If it's beyond that, then what? Then what, everyone? Then it's what? Permissible to flee. Well, the number now is doubled amongst them. He said, "O kana indahum idda." He says in this particular instance, if that's the number, it's double, more than that, than what was mentioned in the ayah, then they can what? They can flee, of course. He says also, in addition to that, we want to add to that, if their equipment is not the same in regards to what they can what? Fight off, which is equivalent to maybe what the non-Muslims have as far as what type of weaponry they're using. Is it clear what I'm saying? For example, if they have airplanes and the Muslims don't have it, and they're just using guns, and then their airplanes are just dropping bombs on their heads, then what? Flee. Is it clear? Because the weaponry here is absolutely no what? It's no equality of what they're using in comparison to what the Muslims have in their hands. Rather, you'll find that Imam al-Albani said this is the reason why in these days there's no jihad as far as jihad al-talab. You'll find that he even mentioned that as far as jihad al-talab. He said due to the fact that one of the reasons why there's no jihad al-talab means to go out and fight in jihad. He said due to the reasons of the severe weaknesses that the Muslims have in their belief system, because they're all divided in their aqa'id. They're all divided in their belief system. And they're divided in their aqidah, because that's the source of their strength. The source of their strength is in their aqidah, and they believe in them being united in it. He says that also due to the weakness of the Muslims, where all the weaponry and the equipment that they attain is made with the non-Muslims. It's manufactured by the non-Muslims. They buy all their weaponry from them. Their main weaponry they purchase is what they get from the non-Muslims. You even find there's a recording, and I'm going to find it inshallah. When Shaykh al-Albani mentioned it, he said, what are the Muslims going to do now? They're going to stop the battle and say, listen, before we fight and engage in a battle, we want to purchase from you weapons. Then we want to engage in a battle. Okay? You understand? Before we start, we want to purchase some weaponry from you. Then after that, let's engage in battle. You understand? Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? That's the reason why you'll find that he said there's no jihad al-talab. As far as jihad, the dafa' of jihad of defense, that's something different. Of course that's legislated. Especially jihad al-dafa'. We're talking about jihad al-talab. Somebody from America goes out to Syria because we know they used to go through Turkey. Because Turkey is right at the border of Syria. Well, it's one of the borders. And I think Turkey probably has 8 different borders from 8 different countries around it. And one of them is Greece, where Rome is. It's on the other side, it's on the eastern side, the border of Turkey. It's Greece. Then on the other side, on the eastern side, you have what? Syria is on the eastern side, on the eastern border. Then you have Greece on the other side. That's the reason why they say Turkey is right in the middle, between the Middle East and what? And Europe, between Europe and the Middle East. It's right in the middle. Before Europe starts, all the European countries, then you have on the other side, which is the Middle East. But Syria is right on the other side. Is it clear what I'm saying? But at any rate, you'll find in regards to now, for you'll find of what is permissible. If it's double the amount of Muslims and the number of the Muslims, then it's permissible to what, as we said, what everyone? To flee away. And if the equipment is not equivalent to what the non-Muslims have, or what is in the hands of the Muslims, if there's no type of what? Adequacy in that regard, then what? It's permissible for what? Flee away. You guys have this memorized? Or you have these details written? Because this is very important. Because this gives you details of how Islam is nothing left to our feelings. Everything has detailed information that Allah has revealed. It's not everything as the non-Muslims from the Christians and the Jews. Everything is based upon what their opinion, or what they see, or what they feel, and what I see, and what I think is good, and what I think is not. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved us from all that. Especially in the most intricate of affairs, and dangerous of them, where people's lives are going to be lost. You think that there's not going to be any details for that? There's going to be explicit details. Especially things that's involved in people's lives being lost. Because we know jihad is a cause for one, losing their life. So there's going to be what? Clear-cut, absolute what? Explicit details in these affairs. To know how to conduct them. And this is what we're talking about right now. So the Prophet ﷺ said, from the major destructive sins is to turn away, except in 2 instances. What's the first one, everyone? What's the first one, Suhail? What's the Well, tell me the definition. Give me anyone. Say it again. That was a good way to save yourself. You can flee away in order to aid or strengthen another group of the Muslims. As long as there's not involved in it a harm upon the army. If there's a harm upon the army, then they cannot join another what? Group of the Muslims to aid them to strengthen their ranks. Tayyib, what's the other one? Musa. Yeah. Jade. If you want to say, if we want to summarize it, let's keep it concise so everyone can understand. Keep it concise. The first one is that a person flees, just to keep it easy, makidatan lil adu, in order to plot against the enemy. That it looks as if you're fleeing, but your intention is to what? Return and come back and fight again. Meaning that you're basically tricking the enemy. Tricking the enemy. You're going away thinking that you're fleeing away, but in actuality you're not. You're either repairing yourself or repairing your weaponry or gathering your weaponry or maybe gathering everything or gathering your thoughts, fixing your affair, preparing to what? To come back. So it's basically to trick the enemy. And we know, as the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Harb khid'ah, that war is trickery. It's trickery in war. That's the exception. But other than that, it's not permissible to what? To flee, or it's not permissible to what? To trick anyone. I want everyone to know that. It's not permissible to trick anyone or play mind games on anyone. But we know that the exception is in war. It's harb khid'ah. It's a narration of the Prophet ﷺ talking about in war that one can what? Can trick someone. So now this is from this what? Exception. So now you go into the enemy, you think you're fleeing, but in actuality you're kind of trying to what? Come back. Is it clear? Is it clear? Is it not clear? Fine. We'll stop here, inshallah. So we'll just read the last part where the message of Allah said in the last part of the hadith, he says, is to accuse the innocent women, the accused, as they say, قَذْفَ الْمُحْسَنَاتِ الْغَافِلَاتِ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ, the believing, if you want to say heedless, women who are believers, that they would never think to avoid or violating their chastity in a immoral, impermissible way, but you still accuse them of that. And they wouldn't think to do such an affair, or as far as violating their chastity in this type of manner. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear? We'll talk about that next class, inshallah, because we got to stop and pray. طيب. Any questions about the class? تفضل حسن. Speak up. And you're in the sleep position. You got to pray. Huh? I can't hear you. Raise your voice. Say it again. I can't hear you. At-Tawalli Yawm al-Zahf, to flee away from the battle. That's all. They call it Tawalli, means to turn or flee away. Tafadal Suhail, tafadal. Man, a fan, huh? Say it again, I'm sorry. It's in your book. It's in your book. You read your book? It's in there. You don't have it? Tafadal Ahmed. What do you say? Exception? To flee away, but to trick the enemy. To flee away, to trick the enemy, to go back and fight in battle. Anything else? calls them to the jizya, to call them that they can remain upon their religion, but they still have to pay the tax to the Muslims. The third one is if they ask for the protection of the dhimma. The dhimma means if they're asking for them to give, they're asking for the Muslims for their security. For their security. Whereas now they might come in to sit and listen, or they might come in to do some work, or they might just come in, like we said, just out of curiosity to hear about Islam. So you grant them their security. You grant them that asylum. You grant it to them. But the Prophet ﷺ said, here, if they do that, make sure you give them the dhimma of yourself, not of Allah and His Messenger. There's a reason why the Prophet ﷺ said that. The reason is, I'll say it quickly, in case some type of betrayal, where not some of the Muslims might betray their trust. Let's say they've violated their trust that they gave to the non-Muslims. We know that the religion has to be protected, and that the evil, even if it's a Muslim that does some evil, now listen to that, the Prophet ﷺ, the wisdom, the Prophet ﷺ, how the revelation is complete. The Prophet ﷺ said, give them the dhimma of yourself. Don't give them the dhimma of Allah and His Messenger. Why? So if they become violated, it can never be ascribed to the religion. It'll be ascribed to you and your own act. So the people will say, see, Islam says this. No, Islam didn't say that. Nor should it be ascribed that Allah and His Messenger what? Justified this type of act of violation and treason. So the religion, the sum'ah, or the reputation of the religion can always stay what? Clean in the minds of the people. Is it clear what I'm saying? That's in the last part of the hadith in the Kitaab At-Tawheed. Follow on last because we got to pray. Take your time. Not necessarily the Quran, but I know what you're trying to say. We're trying to say that it would not, if an act was done, that the people would not ascribe it to the religion. Exactly. The people, the non-Muslims will be used, ahsant. The non-Muslims will be used as an excuse. To see, Allah, He said He gave Allah and His Messenger our protection, and here they violated it. See how those Muslims, this is how they see how they conduct themselves, see how treacherous they are, and that's supposed to be Allah's covenant that you gave us. Well, that's the message of Allah's covenant, and you violated it. So that would consider a way where the non-Muslims could what? Gain some type of advantage over the Muslims, to use it as some type of excuse. No. Who? Tafadal. Just hear what he said. Just ask. Jamal, say the question to Casual and Casual to me. We're about to pray too, Jamar. We got to pray. Brothers, don't do this again, please. Brothers, I'm in the middle of class. You're going to hand the phone? She could have... طيب هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.